No personal items, so I recommend anything you can leave in the car, leave in the car. And then the National Board Dental Hygiene is again going to have the 2 sessions. Your first session, you have 3.5 hours to complete it. Your second session, you'll have 4 hours. And they'll give you a break in between. I believe it's a half an hour, but they'll tell you when you leave. On a personal note, a couple words of advice for if you go in between. It is good to leave for a minute, kind of shake it off, go get a drink of water, grab a soda, do whatever you need. Don't put on a ton of lotion, hand sanitizer, anything like that. They scan your hand to get in and scan your hand to get out. So sometimes if you do something that's going to change how your hands look, they'll get you back in, but it might take a minute. It can be kind of stressful. It happened to me. So just be cautious with lotions, even washing your hands. Just be aware that you don't want to change your hands very much. And then your results. And I know this is something I was very anxious about. So your examination results is dependent on, you have your number of correct responses, what you got right, what you got wrong. That's considered your raw score. And then you have a score scale conversion. So they have a system that they convert your score over, and that's when you get your standard score. The score reported is your standard score. So you're never going to see how many you got right, how many you got wrong. And they do that, they group you in, I don't know how many they wait for, but they wait till a group is big enough to grade you with. And then if there's a ton that missed a question, they're going to toss that question or not count it. So they're never going to let you know what you got right, what you got wrong, but they're going to let you know if you passed based on the group you're in. And your scores range from 49 to 99, with the minimum passing score being a 75. So that's their system of doing it. Yeah.
Remember, was that minimum passing score went up to 80? Do you know?
Oh, I don't know. Where'd you hear that from?
I think that was like going around all over. I don't know where.
Oh, I don't know. I made this last fall, so if there's been a change since then, it very well could be.
Okay. I'll just double check that.
I'd say look at their website, and they're pretty clear on what their expectations are. That's good to know. Has anyone else heard that? No?
Come on, Kathy, look it up.
That would be good. And when you get your official scorecard, it's simply going to say you passed or you failed. Again, they're never going to let you know your score, which is, for dental hygienists, kind of frustrating because we're perfectionists and we want to know. But you'll get a card. It usually takes 3 to 4 weeks after your examination, and you'll know if you passed. Doesn't happen very often, but for those who are unsuccessful, you're allowed to reapply 90 days from the date of your previous exam. And then if you fail 3 times, then you have to wait a year before reapplying, which I've never heard of that happening, but that's your options if you do get in that situation, which I don't think any of you will be. So a couple tips for preparing for the National Board Dental Hygiene exam, which I'm sure you have many strategies already. You guys are, who's taking it in April?
We're all taking it in March.
In March, oh wow.
30
Okay.
days.
30.
It's a month from
You guys
tomorrow.
are ready, right? Piece of cake. So I'm sure you already have a study plan. Review, again, I keep emphasizing review their candidates guide. It helps a lot just to know what they expect from you. Review the most recently released National Board Dental Hygiene exam. They have free ones online. Some of them you do have to pay to get access to, but they have some copies out there from previous exams that are free to you. Outline areas of weakness, what you need to work on most. Most people have, go ahead.
I just looked at it's still 75 pass.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. At this point, you probably know what you know, what your strengths are. Work on the things that aren't the biggest strengths for you, your weaknesses. Develop a personal resource library. It's different for every person. A lot of my dental hygiene class, like have you ever seen the cards, the huge box of cards? Bought those, never once looked at them. But they were perfect for some people. I took better to a review textbook. So just figure out what works best for you. Everyone's different. Create a study schedule, and if you do have a study group, make sure whoever's in your group is similar to how you study, that you can take it seriously, get work done while you're in the study group. It's easy just to go in tangents, I know. Been there. Okay. A couple guidelines for when you do take those multiple choice parts of the test. You want to read the stem carefully and identify what they're looking for before looking at the responses. So it's never a bad idea. Our minds naturally want to go straight to the responses, and that can be an easy way to trick you. Read the question first and see mentally if you know the answer before it's there. If you know the answer and then it's an option, you know you're in pretty good shape. So really take a second to read the question before you jump to the answers. Be cautious in selecting any responses that contain the words always, never, none, all, or every. It's very infrequent that that's the correct answer. It's not always that way. Always, there you go. But it's a lot harder for them to make a question that's going to be correct, with that being the answer. That it's always this answer. They avoid questions that might change with time or could be interpreted differently with different people. So it's unlikely they're going to say something like that. Look for answers that applies to the best condition presented in the item. And then they're really good at writing test questions, but they're not perfect. Sometimes it's easy to find grammatical clues, I apologize. Things that don't match up with tenses, things like that. Again, they obviously review these questions a lot, but you can pick up on some of that stuff still. Okay. Cautious of those words as well, not, least, or except. Carefully review questions that include all of the above or none of the above. And don't be concerned if you're selecting the same letters. A lot of these are automatically generated. If you truly think the same answer is B 6 times in a row, there's nothing wrong with that. It probably wasn't designed that way, and they're shuffling the questions, and that just happened to be how they fell. So I don't think there's some master plan behind how this is being presented.
I used to think that on Stanton. I'm like, I've selected B too many times. It's not right.
So this is automatically generated. Everyone's test is different. The person sitting next to you is not going to have the same test you are, and you're not going to have the same questions either. They're going to be randomly selected. You'll get different ones that they think are the same difficulty, but they're going to be different questions. So don't be alarmed. And then you want to review all of the case material and make mental notes, or even jot down normal notes too, of anything that's significant. Read that well and then go on to the questions. Again, you always want to read the question first and then look at the answers. So that's kind of a brief overview of how the National Board of Dental Hygiene functions. Can I answer any questions for you guys?
I have a question about like study materials and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard that a lot of people have said like the online board reviews and stuff like that end up being harder than the actual test. Did you find that like personally? Like when you were studying, like I'm scoring myself, I'm like, oh, this is not good, but then everyone says I get 60% on those, and then I thought the boards was easy.
So a big thing to remember is how they grade it. So how you're grading yourself is that raw score, which can be disheartening, to be honest, when I just got a 60% on that. But that's before any of those questions would have gotten thrown out, and that you get graded with the group to see how everyone did with these set of questions. So yeah, I do think those are a lot harder just for that reasoning, that you want to get to that 75%, and it may not necessarily be there. But if those were the exact same questions in the actual exam, you could have passed. So doesn't make it any easier, but yes. Did that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions I can answer for you guys? Yeah.
You do is it like a full-on page? You can kind of just keep scrolling and you go back to ones to like recheck it, or is it like you click the one, you go to the next thing, and the question's gone?
I don't remember.
I'm pretty sure you can mark them for review,
Mhm.
Yeah.
like just like how we took LA boards.
Okay.
I think it's each question and then you hit next, I believe. Don't quote me, but you can go back. So one of the best strategies for that is if it's a question you just don't know and it's taking you a long time, put down an answer, write it down or mark it review, and then go back. And then if you have time at the end, yes, go back. And sometimes it's like an aha moment, and now that you've gone away and come back, you know you have a better idea of what the question's asking for. But don't spend too long on any question, and it honestly kind of gets you flustered if you do. So just put an answer, mark it, and move on. And then if you have time, go back. And there's no penalty for marking answers. Incorrect answers, I guess I should say. You're not gonna lose a point by putting something that's wrong versus leaving it blank. So always put an answer. If it's wrong, but go on and get the questions you know you can get right. So. Any others? Okay. And if you guys would like, I'll give you my horror story of the National Board Dental Hygiene Exam, and I passed just fine. So Pearson View, when I took it, the whole region was down for the day. So I was supposed to start at 8, I started at noon. I kind of preluded to this, but when I took my break, my hand wouldn't scan going back in. And then when I went to leave, the parking garage was broken and wouldn't let me out of the building.
Oh my gosh.
And I passed just fine. So it's gonna be, I would be lying if I said it wasn't a stressful day, but it's something, do you guys know the pass rates for EWU?
It's like 99%. It's up there.
Usually they're very high. You guys have gone through 4 years, right, altogether? 3 in the program and then prerequisites.
Yeah.
You know what you're doing. You know your information. Most of the information when I took it, everything rang a bell. You've learned it before. And overall, most people do really well on it. So take a deep breath. It's not as bad as it sounds, and you'll get through it. And you guys are almost there, so that's exciting. So, great job. I do have, so these are created by me. So hopefully there's no mistakes on them. But I did do a full-blown case study for you guys. I have just some sample questions that's written in the National Board Dental Hygiene Exam formats. And then I have a testlet that's about medical emergencies. So I obviously don't have the answers on all of these, but if you guys want to work with them, I'll make sure the answers get sent to you so you have the right answers. But if nothing else, these kind of just give you a good example of how they're going to be written. So you're welcome. And then if you don't mind, for my own knowledge as a lecturer, I'll have you guys do a muddiest point. Have you ever done that before?
Oh, yeah.
It's pretty simple. It's just what's the muddiest point of everything we talked about today. So it helps me figure out how I could do it better next time and what would be good for you guys to know. So if you would jot down a note or two for that, I'd appreciate it, and just leave it up here on the table. And then these are all for you. Would it be best just to pass them?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, just put them on the table.
Put them up here. Okay. And those cookies are for you. I'm not taking them home, so please eat them.